Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First and first, boys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great.
I'm alright, thank you. So before we get into the new music, I'd like to go back a little bit because, well, you started when you were around 16, 17. That's when everything started taking off. Touring 5 years straight. When did you notice you needed a couple of months out?
I think it's very important for a band to realize when they need to take a little time. I think when we didn't really have anything to write about, I think that was also a big reminder where it was like, or the songs we're writing were really sad, and we couldn't really. Yeah, I mean that's when you kind of know that there. I don't know. There wasn't enough drive or inspiration to take the band to the next level. So I think that's where you take like a couple months and be like, all right, let's just chill, and then come back and hit it hard, and that's what we did.
So that idea of the third album was already in your minds by then?
Yeah, I think we were always pretty proactive in envisioning what we wanted to do for the next chapter. There was a lot of thought process that went into creating the whole aesthetic and creating the sound and sonic. It was quite difficult for us because it's something that we've never done before whilst living in the same place for a period of time. So it was a different experience for writing this album.
Right. And so with that, I think you took about 2 months out. Did you go back to some things that you used to do but weren't able anymore because of kind of everything taking off and then your whole life changing?
One of my main goals in our time off was to get healthy. And to get my mind in a place where I was able to come up with new ideas and share them in a positive way, and get my body healthy for playing drums and everything again, and it was more recovery and focusing on like health. That was literally one of the main things. Second, we had to find out where we were going to live, so we all decided to live in Los Angeles. And third, I needed to look at the circle around me of people and see who was adding to my life and who was making me a better person, and who was inspiring me to carry on, with this band and with you guys, So there were a couple of things we needed to work on.
Was there then again a moment when everybody felt ready again? Because 2 months, 5 years of touring, I can imagine you taking a longer break than that.
Yeah, I don't think that there was a moment when we were ready. I think, a lot of 2017 for us was exploring a lot of different avenues to make this record. We wrote like a lot of songs for this record that didn't make it. And I think it was more about us like easing back into this new era for us and in us working with new songwriters and stuff like that. And we took it pretty slow. Like, we only took 2 months off, but we weren't like, there's a date and the record has to be done by this date. It was more about like finding our way through it and like figuring out what's going to be the best thing that we can do for this album. And that was
totally
where no.
Was there a turning point then? Because you say you were writing all kinds of songs and they didn't really seem to work. And then was there a turning point where you kind of felt, okay, now we have what we want for the third album? Or we have an idea of what we want?
I think the turning point was kind of almost philosophical in the sense that everything we never thought we would do, we did, and we did it in our own way, and it worked. Everything we were scared of musically, we tried it, and it turned out great. It was all everything we accomplished music-wise was on the other side of our fear, which was the best part. Yeah.
Can you give me one example of something
you
as a band were afraid of?
I think we were always scared to work with really pop writers, and all we ended up doing was taking our musical influences. Music didn't change, the way we played our instruments didn't change. All we did was learn, and we learned things that were great tools that we'll take into the future as a band.
Totally, and I think that we were, initially scared about going into working with these super pop people, but it wasn't until you start working with people in that world that you realize that they are in pop for a reason. Like all of them are really, really smart and like very good at what they do. And, you know, that's why we've come out with this record, which I think is probably our most like punk record so far, with like just it's less about the actual sound of punk and it's more about like the essence of what it is to be a rock band.
Yeah, and it has an element of uniqueness that we haven't had in our music before, and that's the most exciting part.
And well, working with all these, this might be a terribly difficult question to answer, but working with all these producers and with your own mind, have you figured out what kind of makes a good song?
I don't. Oh, that's difficult. That is a difficult question.
It's
I don't think there's any one thing that makes a song great. There's definitely things you pick up and learn from people that do know exactly how to make like a hit song. But I think it's more. It's not really. That's not what we're about. It's more about making the best thing we can, and it's about injecting. And when you're working with those kind of high end writers, it's more about this. It's what the band brings. Like the band or the artist will bring like kind of the best. They're gonna bring their stories. They're gonna bring their kind of inspiration, and then it's more about a pop writer or whatever guiding you in the right direction, I suppose. Then you learn what they do in the sessions with you, and you take that into your own kind of writing as well.
And I wrote a couple of names down of artists who inspired you in this process.
Mm-hmm.
LCD Sound System, Tears for Fears, Chris Isaak, The Neighborhood, The Cure, Nancy Sinatra. So these are, it's a quite eclectic mix, but also a little bit more 80s maybe. So was that, where did that come from?
Yeah, we've always been influenced by 80s music, whether it be like hard rock or, you know, because it has an energy to it that was providing people with the music that were the bands and the artists in that point in time were playing the biggest live shows. And I think when any band gets to a certain level where they're playing to thousands and thousands of people, they do go back and go, well, how did the stadium acts do it, the real guitar stadium acts? And then you pay attention to what they were doing. But also for our music to evolve into a place that felt real, we had to find where the substance of our writing was coming from. And that was relative to a weight and a mood that we felt after coming off 5 years of touring and having relationship struggles and always being away from people and also test of moral all the time, you know, traveling and you know, not falling short of what the man you want to be. And then you stumble upon bands like The Cure and Joy Division and stuff like that, and you go, there's a sadness, there's a melancholic element in the music that will relate to you as a young man in his 20s. And that was useful also sonically for guitar tones. The Cure, you'll hear a lot of guitar work that will resemble bands like The Cure. Even more modernized, the Ghost Stories album by Coldplay has that type of guitar work, which you'll hear on our album. Yeah.
You mentioned an interesting point because we could say everything went fairly quickly for you. You started performing, then within a couple of years you're supporting One Direction, huge shows all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Is it difficult in that mix of touring constantly to take that step back and kind of reflect on who you are, because you're not the same kid that started out?
Yeah, it's confusing shaking hands with yourself for the first time in 5 years. It's like what artist am I? Who am I? What do we say? What do we say as a collective group? What do we enjoy? Do the other members in the band enjoy what influences each other? It's a very confusing, rummaging period through all these things, and then you end up with an album, and that's where our third album comes from, kind of re-meeting ourselves as people and as artists.
Can you take me to maybe just an average day in the studio, what that was like, what the atmosphere was like?
I guess it kind of depends what you're talking about. It was interesting in the recording part. There was like kind of a sense of like almost relief for me. Anyway, it was like, damn, we got all these great songs. We're so proud of them, and now we're recording them, and we're gonna add like all the stuff we want to add to these great pop songs. Really. So that part was fun. That was all fun. But the writing the writing part, I think, was much more difficult. Talking about what Ashton was talking about was, it was kind of rummaging through what had happened over the last kind of 5 years and like what was going on in like, it was such a whole different, it was super hard, like it was a whole different time of our lives than anything we've ever had before, and it was super difficult to kind of, I don't know, make, it was a hard album to make. But when there was moments of like, the songs would kind of just come out, and those parts were easy, but everything around it was very difficult, I think we found. But then we started to record it and was like, oh, these songs are great. And I'm so glad we pushed ourselves past anything we've had before.
Because I can imagine having the level of success that you've had, that each album that you make, there is a certain amount of pressure on it. So,
Yeah.
so what is it that like to deal with?
We were just still we were looking for our staple music, you know, like we don't want to be a band for 8 years, 9 years. We want to be a band for a long time, and we want to be a band that people attempt to imitate, just as we imitated people when we were young and younger than we are now. I think we were taking references from bands that had done great things recently, like 21 Pilots and stuff like that, and we are very, very lucky to be in a world with bands like that pushed people to the next kind of stage in music. And you know, you're surrounded by those bands, and when you came just before them, when you were like, you know, you reached, you know, the level that we reached just before them, you're constantly pushed to try reach the level that they reached, or there's always an artist that's going to push it ahead, and they're always going to test you. And if you're not feeling tested in modern music to use old, new, and you, then you're getting it wrong, I think. So I think we feel confident in the fact that this is album. This is, to me, this is our first real like stamp on music, I think.
Okay. Well, with that being said, then what do you want people to take away from this stamp? What do you want people to?
I would like. What would you say?
I think that it would be. I think the main thing we want to get from this record is that we want people to see who we are now as people. I think we want to push the boundaries of what it is to be a modern rock band making pop music, and I think that we're just, you know, excited to keep touring and keep, like, you know, keeping our fan base like active and alive and excited and you know, really feeling the energy of the new music that we're making, I think.
Final question, and then because you mentioned your fans, and from what I've seen, you have very dedicated fans, very, very loyal fans.
Mm-hmm.
How do you interact with them? Well, how important is that interaction with them, and to keep them, especially after being away for a little bit?
The interaction with our fans has changed over the years because they grew up with us and now we're grown. And it's also, it has a lot to do with the respect for what you give them. And we really focus now on the quality of words we use, the quality of things we post, the quality of conversation and interview effort that we put in, because we are just people like anyone else trying to be understood. And it's a kind of an endless thing, but they're very supportive of us evolving into whatever musicians and artists we will become. And we feel like what we're doing is important, and they feel like what we're doing is important too. And that's kind of the basis of our relationship with our fans.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks
Thanks for having us.
All right, that's it.
Cool.